Welcome to Cody Talks NFL presented by Blitzalytics.com. And here's your host, Cody Manning.
Hi, guys. It's Cody Manning here with Cody Talks NFL presented by Blitzalytics.com. Guys, a little intro to myself. I am a football enthusiast. I got a bachelor's degree in sport management from the University of Tampa. I got a football general manager and scouting certificate from Sports Management Worldwide. I'm the content manager here at Blitzalytics, social media manager, scout, analyst, whatever you want to call it, podcast host of the Fantasy Football Hot Seat. But the purpose of this show that you're going to see on our YouTube channel every Monday and Friday is I'm going to keep you updated on what to know about all 32 NFL teams. You guys know whenever you turn into ESPN, you sit there for 45 minutes to hear about your team and they don't talk about your team, or maybe they only talk about your team for a solid 10 seconds, and it can be annoying. I'm here to fix that for you guys. What to expect from the show today? I'm going to go into some news where I'm going to talk about some trades that happened over the weekend. I'm sure you guys heard about that. And then I'm just going to go into how I feel about all 32 NFL teams, give my division winners, my playoff picture, and even my Super Bowl winner for the upcoming season. To go ahead and get into the news, guys, the biggest news of the weekend, Jadeveon Clowney was traded to the Seattle Seahawks. We were talking about the Texans' former number one pick is now going to be lining up for that ferocious number 12 defense in Seattle. The Clowney got traded for the Seahawks. For those who don't know, Texans sent a third-round pick, Barkevious Mingo and Jacob Martin, to get Clowney. Really don't like that return on the Texans for Clowney. I feel like he could have drove more value. They could have got better players, maybe a running back, maybe Penny, maybe Carson, somebody that could help them win. Maybe a lineman, but they end up getting a lineman, what I'll talk about here soon. But the biggest thing with the Seahawks, they did promise that they wouldn't franchise tag Clowney, so that could help with extension talks for them. And their defense up front needed an edge rusher. He's more of an elite run stopper, but he will be able to help them get to the quarterback, especially lining up opposite of Ezekiel Ansah. I expect the Seattle defense to be a lot tougher this year because of this move. And the biggest thing I took from this is the Texans agreed to pay $7 million of Clowney's signing bonus. So the Seattle Seahawks are only paying him $8 million this year. That's way less than what the Texans would have paid for him. So it's a big win in Seattle. Texans, I feel like they didn't get much out of it. And if Clowney, for whatever reason, decides to walk after this year, keep in mind, with a compensatory pick, Seattle will end up getting that third-round pick back in the future for the draft. And then to move on to the Texans, they continue their day. Now, before this trade happened, where Clowney got traded to the Seattle Seahawks, there was speculation that the Texans were going to trade him to the Miami Dolphins for Laramie Tunsil and some other picks. Well, Clowney didn't want to go to Miami. They shipped him off to Seattle, like I talked about, but they still weren't done dealing. They wanted to get that franchise left tackle that can protect Deshaun Watson. Well, the Texans end up shipping 2 first-round picks, a 2020 and a 2021 first-round pick, a 2021 second-round pick, special teamer, he's a cornerback, Johnson Baden-Mosey, and offensive tackle Julian Davenport to the Dolphins to get Laramie Tunsil, Kenny Stills, a 2020 fourth-round pick, and a 2021 sixth-round pick. Now, this is an absolute steal for the Dolphins. I don't necessarily agree with them moving Tunsil. Tunsil's a great young left tackle. Some people do think he's a top 5 left tackle. I'm not ready to say that quite yet. He still is on his rookie deal. But at the end of the day, they did what they needed to do, and that's go get some protection for Deshaun Watson. It helps them improve now, but they just mortgaged their future. So they, A, better hope this helps them win now. But B, the most important thing I took out of this is they did not agree to an extension with Laramie Tunsil. He has 2 years left on his rookie deal. So what if he bounces? Are they going to play the franchise tag game with him? We'll have to see how the CBA looks after that's agreed upon and see if the franchise tag is actually still a part of the new CBA. But if for whatever reason they don't agree to a contract extension with him, they're going to look like fools in the end. Tunsil now has all the leverage. He can end up commanding being the first $20 million left tackle, taking a bunch of their salary cap space. So this is why you need a GM. Bill O'Brien's just, playing with house money at this point. In my opinion, he's kind of locking himself in the future because what GM's going to want to go work there when they have no capital to work with, especially if they end up firing Bill O'Brien if this year does not work out. I'm going to talk about it later, but even though they got the left tackle, it does not solve the issue for the rest of their offensive line. The Dolphins had Laramie Tunsil last year, and they still had one of the worst offensive lines in the league. So just having a left tackle putting a Band-Aid on a big gaping hole in your leg is not going to fix it. But that's something I'll talk upon later. As far as the winner of this trade, I do feel like it's kind of a win-win situation. I didn't necessarily agree with Tunsil being traded for the Dolphins, but I understand they got a big haul. They got all that cap space that they can now revamp their entire roster, but you can't argue that they're tanking. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 0-16 team. But I'll talk about that later. And the Dolphins weren't done there. They actually yesterday traded Kiko Alonso to the Saints for Vince Beagle, another linebacker. Honestly, I kind of just see that as a swap. Alonso's at the back end of his career. I was actually at the Bucs-Dolphins joint practice a few weeks ago, and the Bucs running backs were eating him alive in little pass catching drills. And you guys are following the Bucs at all? They don't really have elite running backs, so their running backs were beating him in those pass catching drills. It means he lost a step. But who knows? Maybe he changed the scenery, gets him back to being the player he once was in the NFL. It's nothing really. No, I kind of feel like that trade's a wash. Dolphins are just creating more cap space. That's basically all that was doing for them while getting them a decent linebacker in return. One of the biggest cut downs from this past weekend is the Bills did decide to cut and move on from LaShawn McCoy. So you're looking right now at a running back committee with Devin Singletary, Frank Gore, and TJ Yeldon in Buffalo. Not sure how it's going to work out, but, old reliable himself, Frank Gore, will probably somehow get 1,000 yards, even though they have Devin Singletary. But with the Chiefs, LaShawn McCoy agreed to a one-year deal. He has $3 million guaranteed, and that deal is worth up to $4 million. Some people are going to wonder how that's going to work out. I think it'll probably be a running back by committee at the beginning of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if McCoy ends up with most of the touches, just because he's got that $3 million guaranteed, and sometimes money does talk in the NFL. Damian Williams only signed a 2-year deal that only had $1.6 million in guarantees, so that's backup money. I think McCoy ends up being the guy. I would suggest if you guys are fantasy football players, tune into our fantasy football hot seat with me and our Blitzalytics Robert Robertson. We'll definitely dive into what that has implication as far as fantasy-wise on our Wednesday episode. Now I'm going to go ahead and get into the previews for you guys. I'm going to go division by division. I'm going to give my winner of that division. I'm going to start from the bottom, who I think was finished 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. And then I'll start with the AFC. I'll give my playoff picture for the AFC. Then I'll move on to the NFC, give my Super Bowl prediction and everything for you guys as far as how I think this year will play out. Starting with the AFC South. Last place, Jacksonville Jaguars. Sorry. I know they still have the defense, but do keep in mind they did lose Telvin Smith. Jalen Ramsey, he's kind of a diva, and he wants his money. I'm wondering if that's going to linger into the season again. I'm not the biggest believer in Nick Foles outside of Philadelphia. I'm not sure if he'll be able to get the job done. He doesn't really have legit passing threats. D.D. Westbrook is probably their best receiver at the moment, but he's not going to be a guy that blows off your top every week. Somebody that you can count on. They say Leonard Fournette's a new-built man, but I don't really trust that line in front of him. Can that line stay healthy? Are they able to depend on him? Can Leonard Fournette stay healthy? So I just see an inconsistent offense that the defense is going to be on the field a lot this year. It's going to be playing a lot of catch-up ball, and I don't know if Nick Foles is that type of quarterback. He's more of a game manager. He's more of a guy that can keep them within the game, but I just don't know if that's going to produce into a lot of wins for him this season. Going into third place, the Tennessee Titans. It's their biggest thing is they got the defense. Honestly, they probably got the most talent as far as across the board on every position within the AFC South. I just don't trust their quarterback situation. Marcus Mariota gave us nothing to believe in the NFL preseason. Now, I know it's just the preseason, but at the end of the day, it's the preseason. So if you're an elite quarterback and you're still out there in your fifth year, you should be looking like you're one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, especially that since you're a former number 2 overall pick. And their wide receivers are, Corey Davis and A.J. Brown. I mean, they are guys that can get the job done, but can the quarterback get them the ball? Honestly, I think at some point we're going to see Ryan Tannehill. That offense will probably just be like last year. Questions. But we don't know their identity. Can Derrick Henry be the guy? Is he going to stay healthy? There's just too many questions for me to believe in them. I see them as like a 5-11, 6-10 team this year. I also could see if Mariota does take the next step, then winning the division. But honestly, I don't think it's going to happen. I see them finish about third. This AFC South is wide open, though. I think all of these teams are going to be within 1 to 4 games from each other, and that's going to be the biggest difference in winning this division. Moving on to second place, the Houston Texans. Now, the Texans do have, now with the Andrew Luck retirement, they have the best quarterback in the division, and that usually will help you win more games. But like I touched upon with the Laramie Tunsil trade, just because you have one of the better left tackles now in the league, that's not going to solve the other 4 offensive line positions. There's still going to be holes in there. As much as I like Duke Johnson, they traded for Carlos Hyde as well. They really don't have a running back that's going to dominate the majority of the touches that can be that bell cow type guy to help make things easier on the offensive line. DeAndre Hopkins will get his, but Kiki Kuti is going to miss already the beginning part of the season with the injury. Will Fuller, can he stay healthy? I know Kenny Stills is a solid wide receiver 3 as well on a roster, but I mean, you're talking about you're throwing a bunch of pieces in this offense, including Tunsil, a week before week 1, and you're going to expect them to know the offense. That's going to take time to, gel within the offense. And they don't really have the best schedule. I mean, you're talking about Drew Brees. Off the top of my head, it's like Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Patrick Mahomes, Matt Ryan, and like a couple other solid elite quarterbacks to start the season. So they have a strong, difficult start to the beginning of their season. And if that doesn't work out for them at the beginning of the season, they're going to be playing catch-up like they did last year. And I don't really think their defense is that great. They have J.J. Watt, but their linebacker corps is above average at best. They have, in my opinion, a weak secondary. So I think those quarterbacks at the beginning of the season have a chance to eat them alive and put them behind. So we will see. I just don't think they have to get it what it's done, and I'm not the biggest believer in Bill O'Brien as well. Number 1, to come to a surprise, if anybody has been listening to the Fantasy Football Hot Seat, any past Blitz Breakdown podcast, you probably know I'm a Colts fan, so maybe a little biased this year. But I think the Colts have what it takes to win the division. They have the depth at all positions, and Jacoby Brissett is no slouch. This isn't 2017. He's behind a better offensive line. He is 2 years now within the system. Frank Reich believes that he can be a top 20 quarterback in the NFL, and I think he has what it takes to do. He got the big arm. He's got weapons in the wide receivers. Colts got the best tight end group in the NFL with Mo Alley Cox, Jack Doyle, and Eric Ebron. They have a defense, deep cornerback group. Malik Hooker and Clayton Gethers can be one of the top safety tandems in the NFL. Darius Leonard, Anthony Walker, and Bobby Okereke are some guys that can end up one day being one of the better linebacker corps in the NFL. They got Justin Houston, they got Kamiko Toure, they got guys that can get up after the quarterback. So I'm actually more excited to see what the Colts defense can bring this year. I'm not saying the Colts still have Super Bowl aspirations with underneath Jacoby Brissett, but they will be solid. They're not going to be an easy out. And like I mentioned, I think the AFC South is up for grabs, and it's anybody's to take. And I trust Frank Reich and Chris Ballard over the rest of the AFC South front office and coaching staff. So I think they're going to squeeze out and win the division either with like a 9-7 record or a 10-6 record. Moving on to the AFC East, the Miami Dolphins. I don't know if I really got to touch upon them too much. They're going to tank. I feel bad for Josh Rosen because I am still a believer in him. But now that they traded Laramie Tunsil, I'm actually kind of glad they're going to start with Ryan Fitzpatrick. But we'll see if Ryan Fitzpatrick can even survive behind that line in the first game. They are going against the Ravens, so we already know the Ravens typically do have a good defense, even though they lost quite a bit of people. I'm not going to really touch upon it. They're tanking. I mean, what do they have to talk about? They have some players on defense like Xavier Howard, but they got holes on the front. They don't have a pass rusher. Their linebacker corps is average at best. Their running backs are average at best. Their tight ends are average at best. Their wide receivers right now can be I like Preston Williams, but they can be average at best. This is a team that can finish with 0 to 3 wins. That's all I'm going to say on them. I'm sorry, Dolphins fan. You got a future to look forward to. I mean, you guys got 2 first-round picks over the next 2 years in 2020 and 2021. You got 4 second-round picks over the next 2 years in 2020 and 2021, and you got a bulldoze of cap space. But are you going to use it right? That's something we'll cover on future episodes of Cody Talks NFL. But for right now, I don't think the Dolphins are going to do much this year. The Jets, we'll see what they're going to do. They got Sam Darnold. He's looking good. He's looking like he's making some progress as a quarterback on the next level. They got Le'Veon Bell, who I still think is a top 3 running back in the NFL, even after sitting out a year. Their wide receivers are pretty good. Quincy Enunwa, Robbie Anderson. They're guys that will be able to move the chains, get the ball down the field, be weapons for Sam Darnold, Jamison Crowder as well. Biggest hit, though, is Chris Herndon, their young tight end, who I think can take the next step. He is suspended for the first 4 games, so they'll have to play without them. And most people aren't talking about the moves that Joe Douglas has done with Ryan Khalil, bringing him at a center, some trades and whatnot, to try to improve that line. We'll see if they can gel. The defense is the biggest question mark. Yes, Jamal Adams is a stud, but they have no cornerbacks right now. Their cornerback depth is lacking. C.J. Mosley is a good, solid inside linebacker. He should help control the middle of the defense. They got a really strong front with Quinn Williams and Leonard Williams, but they still don't have a pass rusher. So we'll see how Greg Williams can generate the pass rush for them. But other than that, I think this is a team that can win some games this year. They're going to surprise some people, but that poor secondary is going to bite them in the butt. And I just think that they're going to be a team that might be like 5-11, 6-10. I don't see them really winning much games. I think that if they can take the next step, it'll be the following year. Plus, I'm not the biggest believer in Adam Gase as well. So unless he puts a winning team on that field this year, that's when maybe I can turn my feelings on him as a head coach. The second team is my sleeper team for the AFC East this year, AFC in a whole this year, is the Buffalo Bills. I like what Sean McDermott is building up in Buffalo. Last year, they finished with a top 5 defense, and they added Ed Oliver this offseason. I think that defense is going to be even better, especially with the growth of linebacker Tremaine Edmonds. I like their secondary of Tre'Davious White. But most importantly, I like where Josh Allen is headed with his career. I think he's going to be more accurate this year. As we saw in the preseason, he's going to be looking to do more dump-offs. They also added a lot of pieces to that offensive line. We'll have to see if it gels or not, but they addressed it. And on top of that, they did go out and sign John Brown. They got Cole Beasley. They got a better wide receiver corps around him. So I'm excited to see what this offense can do underneath Josh Allen with his arm and his rushing ability. I think this is a team that's going to win throughout the season. They're going to be strong. They got a strong defense that keep them within it. And as long as Josh Allen is not making any boneheaded decisions and throwing interceptions, this is a team I think that can sneak in as a wild card team. They did it a couple of years ago when they weren't even supposed to be there. And now they have a better quarterback, a better offense, and a top 5 defense. Watch out. I'm not going to say they're going to win this division because the team I'm about to talk to, I'm not going to doubt them anymore until I see it. The New England Patriots, I have them as the division winner of the AFC East. Pretty simple. They got Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. I can't bet against them, right? They got Josh Gordon coming back this year. They got a deep running back group, Julian Edelman. They got a really solid defense, not much names you know about, but they brought in guys like Michael Bennett, Chase Winovich through the draft. And I just think that's a team that they're just going to win. And unless Tom Brady's leg falls off this year, I just see them walking through the AFC East and winning it. And I'm just not going to doubt them anymore. And then moving on to the AFC North, the Cincinnati Bengals. That's another team I just have no faith in. Their line is decimated already before the season began. AJ Green's hurt. I don't trust their tight ends. I really like Joe Mixon. I think Joe Mixon can still have a big year in this scheme underneath Zach Taylor, but their defense has too many question marks on all levels of the ball. Like, who's going to get after the quarterback? Who's going to be who's their best linebacker? Who is their secondary going to gel? I just don't see it. I think they're going to struggle all year. I see 3 or 4 wins for them. They're going to finish last. There's nothing really much to say on them. With the next team, I think is going to finish third is the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I know the Ravens made the playoffs last year, but they got a lot of question marks. They lost a lot on their defense. And CJ Mosley, Sedarius Smith. So who's going to be their pass rusher they can count on? Who's going to be the leader of that defense? Now, they do have the best secondary in NFL with the addition of Earl Thomas. I like their cornerback group, but I also really question the other side of the ball. Can Lamar Jackson take that step as a quarterback? Can Mark Ingram be that bell cow running back for them? He can be, I believe, but he was still splitting time with Alvin Kamara last year. So we'll see if he's a guy that can be the 20-plus touches every week. And their biggest concern with me is their wide receiving corps. They did draft Marquise Brown, guys like Miles Boykin, but are those guys going to be somebody they can rely upon every week? Is this an offense that's built to play comeback ball? What if they get behind? What if the defense isn't doing their job? I just see this as a team that will win some games, but can't win because the offense can't produce through the air when it's time to do it in the crunch time in the fourth quarter, the last 2 minutes of the game. I think they're going to be like a 6-10, 7-9 team, possibly. I could also see them being worse than that too. Moving on, the Steelers. I was really down on the Steelers heading into this season. Over this course last couple of weeks, I kind of see some flashes of what they can be. But I really don't trust their defense to win the division. I think there are some holes within that secondary. I want to see them on the field before I can believe that they can get the job done. And also, too, on the offensive side of the ball, can Big Ben get it done without AB? And I know he didn't have Le'Veon, but at the end of the day, James Conner wasn't healthy for all 16 games last year. So can Big Ben be the guy? Can he lead him to the playoffs? Because as we saw last year, he wasn't able to. So I think Mike Tomlin is a good coach. I can actually see them winning this division. But I think Big Ben is going to take a step back as far as his playing ability this year with his age. So I think this team's going to be like an 8-8, maybe a 9-7 squeeze into the playoff type team. I don't know. There is a weird feeling with the Steelers for me this year. I want to say that they can get the job done, but something tells me they're going to be around an average team. And moving on to my division winner, Cleveland Browns. They finally end the playoff drought, right? They got what I think is kind of like how I feel about the Colts, why people were excited about the offense, is the Browns defense excites me. They got playmakers on all levels of the ball. Myles Garrett, Christian Kirksey at linebacker. They even got, cornerback depth with guys like Devin Ward and Demarius Randall at safety, and even Greedy Williams from the draft, who I believe, in my opinion, was the best cornerback entering the draft this past year. So they got playmakers on the defense. Their defense is going to be a lot better. It's probably going to be the reason why they stay in games. Baker Mayfield, I expect him to take another step as a quarterback. Of course, their biggest trade from the offseason was Odell Beckham. He's going to be able to stretch the field wide. Nick Chubb's a very good running back. But my biggest concern with the Browns, though, is their Achilles heel will be their offensive line. Their offensive line has holes at the right guard spot where they traded Kevin Zeitler. Austin Corbett's not the guy. So is that whoever was placed there in week one, is he going to be able to hold that down? I'm not the biggest fan of Greg Robinson at the left tackle spot. We will see if he even they did release him, but the plan is they'll resign him for whatever reason. We'll see if he can be that guy at the left tackle spot again this year. But for whatever reason, the Browns don't live up to the hype, I believe it will be because of the offensive line. But I still think they have the most talent in this division. So I think they're going to squeeze off this division and win it. Not with a crazy record. I think it's going to be like a 10-6, 11-5 type record, maybe even 9-7. This is similar to the AFC South because I do think the Steelers and Ravens are pretty solid enough that they're going to be able to stay within a hold of that division, win some games, but I think the Browns squeeze it out at the end of the day. Moving on to the AFC West, starting at the bottom, I think it's going to be the Raiders. I'm sorry to Karen, some of the guys with other people that are Raiders fans within Blitz. But as much as I like John Gruden, and I think he's got him in, I think he's got this division heading in to the right direction with this past draft class. I'm not a big believer in Derek Carr. I just don't think he fits this offense right now. They got guys like Antonio Brown, Tyrell Williams are guys that are going to stretch the field. Josh Jacobs, can he be that bell cow running back? I know people believe he can be, but we have not yet to see that even from the college level. So if he's not ready to take 20-plus touches a game, where's this offense going to go? I feel like this offense really doesn't have an identity right now. I think that's something they might be able to develop throughout the season, but I think that's going to lead to losses at the beginning of the season. The defense is really young. They're going to be faster this year, but they're just like their offense. They really don't have an identity. Are they, smash mouth? Are they, bend but don't break? We really don't know what to expect from this team. I think they'll win some games, but I see them as 4-12, 5-11 type team. The Denver Broncos, moving on to them, I think they're going to finish third. Now, this is a team that could end up surprising some people, but it's going to be on the play of Joe Flacco. We did see at the beginning of last year, he was actually looking pretty good before his injury, but can he stay healthy? If he gets hurt, they really don't have a backup quarterback that's solid right now with Drew Lock, their second-round pick, going to the IR. So, they do got Emmanuel Sanders, Cortland Sutton. They got Philip Lindsay. They got Royce Freeman. They got an offense that can produce if Joe Flacco can be maybe Joe Flacco of old. I think this is a team that's going to win some games against some good teams, but I just don't see them overtaking the next two teams in the Chargers or Chiefs. I think they can also finish around 6-10, maybe a 7-9 type team. But this could also go south. If Joe Flacco gets hurt, if Joe Flacco just keeps on digressing as a quarterback, which he has over his career, this could all easily be a 3-13 team. So this is a team that, like I said, they can compete this year, but I lean towards them just being a team that will win some good games and then probably lose most. Moving on to the next team was a team I actually thought was going to win the division in the LA Chargers, but with the injury to Derwin James costing him to miss the first 3 games, and then the Melvin Gordon holdout, Tom Telesco came out yesterday and said that they will not be doing any more contract negotiations with Gordon. It's possible that he will get traded, and if he gets traded, I really think that offense takes a step back. Their starting left tackle, Russell Okung, is dealing with blood clots right now, so he's going to miss the beginning part of the season. I can honestly see this team missing the playoffs, but I think the veteran leadership of Phillip Rivers will help them maintain help them win games. And then I can see this where when Derwin James returns from his injury, and let's just say Melvin Gordon doesn't get traded, he will want to report at some point to make sure he accrues the season so he can head into free agency. So if those guys do return at some point, I can see them doing what they do always and make that last minute playoff push and squeeze in as a wild card team. Because at the end of the day, their defense still has talent. They got Melvin Ingram. They got Joey Bosa. They got Thomas Davis, Denzel Perryman, Desmond King, Casey Hayward, Nasir Adderley, see if he can take that step as a rookie at the safety spot. So they got the talent on defense. They still got talent on offense, even without Melvin Gordon. They still got Hunter Henry, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Philip Rivers. I think Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson can get the job done for the time being, but they are no Melvin Gordon. If they want to make that Super Bowl run, they got to get Melvin Gordon back in the building. Other than that, I think this is a team that will win games throughout the year. And eventually, I do see them squeezing in as a playoff team. And if they do squeeze them in as a playoff team and Derwin James is healthy and Melvin Gordon is on that roster, I would not be surprised if they make a run to the Super Bowl with that talent on the defense and offense. The winner of the division, though, because of the injuries and the questions around Gordon, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. You can't deny, of course, Patrick Mahomes will be Patrick Mahomes. I expect that offense to be a lighting up offense. Do expect a digression in Patrick Mahomes. It's just something that doesn't happen often. People throwing for 50 touchdowns, but he could still have 35 touchdowns and 4,000 yards and still have a really good year for the quarterback position. So they got Tyreek Hill for the whole year. Like I mentioned, they just brought in LaShawn McCoy. That's going to help out the offense. Travis Kelce, their line is still solid. Most importantly, they added Frank Clark and the Honey Badger on their defensive side of the ball. Now, their cornerbacks, in my opinion, are still questionable to me. I still think that you can throw the ball in that defense. I still think that their linebackers are above average at best. So I think their defense is good, but not great. That's where I think they are at. But they got so much talent on the defense, and there's so many question marks surrounding the other three teams in the AFC West. I think they walk away with this division at like a 12-4, 11-5 record, and then they will be able to see if they can get on that playoff push towards the Super Bowl. Looking at my playoff picture predictions, I think the Patriots do finish at the number 1 seed just because they are playing in the easiest division. I got the Chiefs at the second second spot in the AFC playoff picture, mainly because of the Chargers injuries and question marks. And then I got the Browns at the third spot. The reason why I said it earlier, I think the Steelers and I think the Ravens will make things more difficult for the Browns, which is why I didn't have them finish at second or first in the AFC. I got the Colts at the fourth spot because, like I mentioned, the AFC South is wide open. I think whoever does win the AFC South this year is only going to win it by a game or two. So it's something that's going to come down to the wire, those Week 16, Week 17 games. I do have the Chargers sneaking in. Like I said, I think they got enough talent to still win games and get in the wild card. And I kind of touched upon it earlier. I got the Bills. I got the Bills sneaking in at the number 6 spot. Keep in mind, guys, I wish I had the stat in front of me. It's been like for a long period of time, there's always been at least 4 surprise new NFL teams in the playoffs. I got 2 for each conference. My 2 for the AFC will be the Browns, and the Bills will be those new playoff teams that may get it in this year. And as far as winning the AFC, I mean, like I said, I think I can see the Chargers going. If the Chargers get healthy, they get James, they get Gordon back in that building, I think the Chargers can win the AFC this year. I can see the Chiefs. I don't think the Browns are ready this year. Let's just get them in the playoffs before we talk about Super Bowl. Maybe the Colts go on a miracle run underneath Jacoby Brissett. Other than that, I'm not going to deny the Patriots. I've done it the last how many years, pick another AFC team just to be that guy that thinks the Patriots are going to fall. But until I see it, I just can't believe that Patriots won't win the AFC. They'll probably continue their reign this year. So as of right now, I'm leaning at the Patriots winning the AFC. Now let's move on to the NFC, starting with the NFC South. Last place, the Bucks. The Bucks while they did hire Bruce Arians, and I do think that Bruce Arians will lead to more wins this year, they will surprise people because Bruce Arians is no slouch. If people forget, when he was in Arizona, he had Blaine Gabbert at his quarterback position, and they were still winning games. So I think Jameis Winston will take the next step underneath him as a quarterback, probably will cut down his mistakes, but what's going to bite them in the butt is that offensive line. That offensive line is not good right now. No, they allowed too many sacks in the preseason and in last year. So I just think they're going to play here. They're going to be playing catch-up ball too often. And that defense just isn't good right now. They're going to be missing JPP to start the season. We'll see if Vita Vea is able to come back healthy. Levante David's still trying to work back and getting healthy for them. Their secondary is really young right now. They're a lot more faster this year. Maybe underneath the leadership of Tall Bulls, they can take the next step. But I see this as the team that's always playing catch-up. Maybe their defense is letting up too many yards and too many touchdowns. And I think this is a team that finishes around 5-11, 6-10, maybe 4-12. And the thing is, they could still do that, and Jameis can look like the future franchise quarterback. They just need this whole roster needs a complete overhaul, and they really don't have a bell cow running back they can count on right now. And usually underneath Bruce Arians, he likes one running back that he can use in his system. Moving on to the next team is the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Atlanta Falcons is a team that I could definitely see going on a playoff run, but for whatever reason, I don't trust their defense this year. I don't think they got a pass rusher they get after the quarterback enough. I'm not a big fan of their linebacker or secondary. Their offensive line, I don't think is going to necessarily take the next step. Yes, they used 2 first-round picks on the offensive line, but that doesn't necessarily they're going to get immediate success with that. So I think they're going to struggle with that. I think they're going to try to run the ball as much as they can with Devontae Freeman and try to force that issue because that appears where they wanted to go. But can Devontae Freeman stay healthy? I do like their receivers and Mohamed Sanu, Calvin Ridley, and Julio Jones. Matt Ryan's always been a solid quarterback, but is he that guy that's going to ever get the job done? Get that Super Bowl win. Is he that guy? I just see a very below average team, 6-10, 7-9, maybe 8-8, and maybe people question if Dan Quinn's a guy. So while I do see a team that could go on a playoff run, I also and something my intuition tells me it's going to be a team that is going to be below average. Moving on is to my surprise team in this division is the Carolina Panthers. I really like what the Carolina Panthers got going on right now. But obviously their biggest question mark will be Cam Newton's health. Can he stay healthy all 16 games? If he does, he still has the talent to be a top 10 quarterback in this league. I'm a huge believer in Christian McCaffrey. I like DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel. They got Greg Olsen coming back this year. He will also be on their line. Their line is probably average at best. Maybe they can play out of their realm. But I think this is the offense that has the potential to put up points, move the ball down the field, play clock control with their type of receivers they have on that team, and of course Christian McCaffrey. But most importantly, their defensive front is amazing right now. They got Brian Burns, Gerald McCoy, Kyle on Short. They got guys that can get after the quarterback, stop the run. They got Luke Kuechly. His health will be the biggest question mark. Dante Jackson in the secondary as well, with Eric Reed and other playmakers as well. So I think this is a team that's going to surprise people. I think they're going to stay within games. And as long as Cam Newton can beat Cam Newton, I want to be surprised if somehow they could squeeze out this division. But I'm not ready to say that right now. I want to see them do it on the field first. As far as the division winner, I got the Saints. Just because they got the best coach in the division. Right now, they got the best quarterback in the division. Now, I do think Drew Brees is set to take a step back this year. I could definitely see him not playing up to par, but they still got Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Jared Cook on that offense. They got a solid offensive line. Their defense should be solid as well. We'll see if Marcus Davenport can take the next step as a pass rusher and help complement Cameron Jordan. Like I mentioned, they got Keith Alonso in the trade, even though I think he's taken a step back, but maybe the change of scenery scenery does help them. Marcus Lattimore, they got a decent, solid secondary. So this is a team I think will end up winning the division. I actually think they even squeeze it off. This is kind of like the AFC North, AFC South, in my opinion. I think the Panthers and Falcons are going to win some games in that division and make it a lot more difficult for the Saints, but I think somehow they squeeze it. I think they do, but this is also a team that I guess I might as well go a little hot take here. I could see them missing the playoffs, and then I can also see Sean Payton moving on and going to be the coach of the Dallas Cowboys one day. But it just, the Saints to me are kind of like the Patriots. You know, it's like I can't just sit here and make a hot take and just talk out of my ass, right? So I think they're going to end. I see them winning the division, but I also see things going very south for them, and maybe the Panthers and Falcons win this division as well. But they proved themselves, so until I see it, I'll believe it. Moving on to the NFC East, last place. This might surprise people because what they think about this division. I got the Redskins. I think the Redskins' offense is downright terrible. They don't have Trent Williams right now. He might be holding out into the season. They have no legit wide receiver that's going to threaten anybody. Maybe Darius Guice can be that guy, but in my opinion, he looks like he was a tad bit slower than what he looked like coming out of college. So he still has to get fully healthy. AP's older. That line is very bad. I mean, they got Eric Flowers at left guard. Case Keenum's their starting quarterback to start the season. Like, are they going to be able to, move the ball at all? Control the clock? I don't see it. Now, I do really like their defensive front on the other side of the ball. I do think they have a chance to be a really good defense, but this is one of those situations where I think the offense is not on the field enough that defense is getting exhausted throughout the game. I think this as a team that's going to be like 3-13, 4-12 at best, maybe even worse than that. Apologize, Redskin Nation, or wherever you call yourselves, but it's going to be a rough year for you guys, and hopefully maybe Dwayne Haskins will see the field and he can show you guys some promise for the future, but I don't see the Redskins being that good at all. Moving on to the Giants. The Giants, I think they made some good steps in the right. I know it's not a big fan. This will be an unpopular opinion. I think they did make some right steps with their additions on the defense, with their draft picks and Dexter Lawrence. I think their cornerbacks that they drafted as well will help them. And their secondary will be a lot better, but I don't see it getting done this year. I think they're going to be a defense that will let up too many yards because it's too young. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I think they just need to go ahead and hand the reins over to Daniel Jones. As much as, Eli Manning backer I've been his whole career, it is time just to let them see what they have in the future. Evan Ingram should have a big year. Golden Tate missing those first 4 games is going to hurt them. But Saquon Barkley will have a better line in front of him. So if they can play ball control, if their defense can step up and make plays when it's needed, I think they're going to squeeze out some games throughout this year. They're not much better than the Redskins, though. I mean, I think they're going to be like a 4-12, 5-11, maybe 6-10 team. But I do think they are a tad bit better than the Redskins, so that's why I have them finishing third. Moving on to the second place team in this division are the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys got a chance to be a legit defense this year. They got talent on all 3 levels of the ball. I expect them that they will compete, but this Zeke holdout, some of the reports, and who knows, by the time you guys are watching this, maybe Zeke has signed his deal, but maybe he hasn't. The latest reports are that the Cowboys grew frustrated at the talks about his contract. So if for whatever reason Zeke misses the beginning of the season, this could linger on, and say Zeke does come back, but he doesn't have a contract done. Does this boil over into the locker room? I'm not the biggest believer in Dak Prescott can be that guy that can win games without Zeke. I do like Amari Cooper, but Michael Gallup could take that next step, but they got questions outside him. And then Jason Witten's not going to be the answer at that age at the tight end position. We'll see if their line can stay healthy this year. As long as their line stays healthy this year, they should return to being one of the top 5 offensive lines in the NFL. But honestly, the biggest guy, I think the reason why the Cowboys will miss out on the playoffs this year, with all this talent, is Jason Garrett. I'm not the biggest believer in Jason Garrett. He's entering the final year of his contract. And like I kind of alluded to when I talked about the Saints, I think the Cowboys end up missing the playoffs with a 6-10, 7-9, maybe 5-11 record. And Jason Garrett's fired, and they'll be looking for maybe like a Sean Payton or a Lincoln Riley. Hey guys, sorry about that. We had a little audio issue when I was talking about the Cowboys, but yeah, like I mentioned, I just don't see the Cowboys making the playoffs this year, which leads to Jason Garrett exiting and somebody like Lincoln Riley or Sean Payton replacing him. Moving on to my division winner, the Eagles. The Eagles got the deepest roster. I won't say deepest, but one of the deepest rosters in the NFL. They got wide receivers for days and Deshaun Jackson, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, Dallas Goedert, and Zach Ertz at the tight end position. They got a deep offensive line where who I thought was the best tackle in this last year's draft, Andre Dillard's not even going to be on the field. Carson Wentz, I think he can return that to MVP form that we saw a couple years ago before his injury. I think Carson Wentz will have that type of year. So if you haven't drafted yet and you're watching this video, go get Carson Wentz in the 8th round of your fantasy football drafts, and you won't regret that. And they got Miles Sanders at running back. I mean, I just love this offense. Their defense will always be good. They got Jim Schwartz at defensive coordinator. We saw last year when all their secondary got banged up, he was still getting the defensive play out of their minds with guys like Avonte Maddox. So I think the Eagles walk away with this division at a 12-4 record, 13-3. I think this is their division to lose. And if they do lose this division, it's either going to be because of injuries or subpar play by everybody on that team. Then moving on to the NFC North. I got the Lions coming in last place. I just don't think they got it. They do have a strong defensive front, but their linebackers, the Jared Davis is good, but he's hurt. Darius Slay is good at the cornerback position, but I'm not a big believer in their entire secondary. On the opposite side of the ball, I mean, their line's above average at best. Kerryon Johnson, I like him as a talent, but are they going to use him right? Are they use him on a consistent basis? Can Marvin Jones Jr. stay healthy this year? Can Kenny Golladay take that third-year step? Is Matthew Stafford healthy? Can he stay healthy for this entire year? Because last year he had to play with back problems. And I'm honestly not the biggest believer in Matt Patricia, but this is a team that's got to win. Based on all the reports, I do believe if this team loses, they're going to clean house between the coaching staff and the front office. I don't think it's going to get done. I see a team that's going to be like 4-12, 5-11 at best. Moving on to the third place team is the Green Bay Packers. Yes, they have Aaron Rodgers, guys, but outside Devontae Adams, who else do they have on offense? I mean, they got MVS, they got Geronimo Allison, old Jimmy Graham, Aaron Jones, if he can stay healthy at the running back position. Their line's all right, but I mean, Aaron Rodgers will always keep them in games, but how many times in his career, especially late in his career, is he going to have to play hero ball for them before it catches up to him? They did address the defense. The defense should be a lot better this year with the addition of Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Darnell Savage. But their secondary is still pretty young. Adrian Amos is on the team as well. I think the reason why I'm not the biggest believer in the Packers this year is I'm not the biggest believer in Matt LaFleur. I really didn't think he was quite yet qualified to be a head coach right now. And if him and Aaron Rodgers aren't gelling, or Rodgers is not liking what he's doing, having to go up and call the plays at the line of scrimmage, whatever the case may be, I think this is a team that's going to win games because of Aaron Rodgers' talent, but lose games because of either coaching decisions or just the young roster surrounding him. I think as a team, it's going to be like 6-10, 7-9 this year. But I mean, also with Rodgers' arm and talent, I could easily see them being 9-7, 10-6, squeezing into the playoffs. But I lean towards them missing out, barely missing the playoffs, or being a below average team. Moving on to second place, might surprise people, but I got the Chicago Bears. I know a lot of people are fans of their defense. A lot of people are drinking the Bears Kool-Aid, I guess, if you want to call it, because of how they played last year. But this is a team that lost one of the most respected defensive coordinators in the NFL in Vic Fangio. It was Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. There was actually an article a couple weeks ago that came out and said he is the hardest guy to prep for every week. And while I do like Chuck Pagano, that defense will take a step back. They're due for a regression, the amount of sacks that they got last year. It's a team that will still have a solid defense, but if you're expecting the same type of production, I would hesitate towards thinking that. The offensive side of the ball, yes, they do have playmakers in Tariq Cohen, David Montgomery, Mike Davis, Allen Robinson, Anthony Miller. Trey Burton's hurt right now, so maybe Adam Shaheen could be their tight end at the beginning of the season, but I don't know. Can Mitchell Trubisky take that next step? I'm not the biggest believer in Trubisky. I think this is going to be a team that's going to regress this year, but they'll still make it to the playoffs. But I don't think they win this division. I think they're going to lose it. I think they sneak in as a wild card team, and it'll be depending on Trubisky's taking the next step. This team is on Trubisky's shoulders because Matt Nagy can dial up as many schemes as he can, but now with a year's worth of tape on his schemes, well, it's going to be dependent on Trubisky taking the next step, taking more shots down the field. Moving on to who I think will win the division, the Minnesota Vikings. I think it's on them. They have to. They pay Kirk Cousins that money. It's time for Mike Zimmer to win. It's a win-now mode for that team. They got one of the deepest defenses in the league. They got playmakers on all levels of the ball. They went out and got Bradbury to add to their line. I think their line will be improved. Most importantly, with the addition of Gary Kubiak to help overlook their offense, they're going to be running a better offensive scheme for Kirk Cousins, more two tight end sets with the addition of Irv Smith with Kyle Rudolph. They got the best wide receiver duo in the NFL in Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. So, and Kirk Cousins, people want to bash him, but at the end of the day, go look at his stats. He was still a quality quarterback last year. Did he take a step back in primetime games and when games matter? Yes, he did. So that's on him. He does need to win those games against good winning teams. I think he has a talent to get it done. And I think the most important thing is Dalvin Cook is healthy. He's going to be back to running the ball for them. Alexander Madison also looks like a solid backup running back for them as well. So I think this defense will gel. They're going to be healthier this year. They're getting all their playmakers back, like Mike Hughes, their first-round pick from last year, who went down with a torn ACL before the season began. Everson Griffin's going to be back to being healthy in a mental health aspect. So I think this is a team that's going to take that next step, get back to that playoffs, and go back to the NFC Championship game, like we saw 2 years ago. We're only 2 years removed from that. So as long as that offensive line gels, I think they're going to win this division. It's going to be tough with the Bears. I think it's going to be like a 10-6, 11-5 win, maybe 12-4. They can win the division with. Lastly, moving on to the NFC West, I see the Cardinals. I know a lot of people are, excited to see them, but Kyler Murray will be exciting. But will he stay healthy? That offensive line is terrible. I think that offensive line is going to hold them back throughout the year. They don't really. Yes, Larry Fitzgerald's here, but Christian Kirk's good. They signed Michael Crabtree, but they really don't have a legit wide receiver one. David Johnson will be good, but is he going to be able to make plays with a line that's going to be Swiss cheese? So, I don't. This offense has a lot of question marks surrounding it. Can the air raid work at the next level? Are they going to be able to? Are they conditioned enough to get as many plays out as they plan on doing? I really don't see it. And the other thing too is their defense. Their defense is going to be bad. Patrick Peterson's missing the first 6 games. Their cornerback too, Robert Alford, is hurt. He's going to miss the beginning of the season. They have old pass rushers in Terrell Suggs and Chandler Jones. While I think those guys are still solid, but they're a lot older. Who knows if they lost a step in the offseason. Their linebackers with Hassan Reddick are average at best. Without Patrick Peterson, that secondary is going to get torched. Yes, they have Byron Murphy, but at the end of the day, he's still a rookie. He's going to have a big learning curve. So this is a team I think is going to really struggle on defense. Maybe they still put up 28, 35 points a game, but that defense might be giving up 35 points a game too. So I think it's a team that's destined to be 3-13, picking into the top 5 next year. Moving on to the 49ers. 49ers got all the talent to win this division. They got the coaching staff to win this division, but I don't know what's going out there in the Bay, but they can't stay healthy. Guys keep on getting hurt for them. I'm not the biggest believer in Jimmy Garoppolo as well. So if he doesn't take that next step as a quarterback and prove he was worth all that money that they gave him, I see this as a team that's going to be like 6-10, 7-9, And, for whatever reason, their front office might question if Kyle Shanahan is a guy. He shouldn't be questioned, but if he ends up getting fired, some other team will end up picking him up and be happy they let him go. But this is a team that has to perform now. Like, they invested in it. This is whenever they brought John Lynch in, whenever they brought Kyle Shanahan in, this is the year they expected to take that next step. They got the team to do so. They got wide receiver depth. They got George Kittle. Tevin Coleman and Matt Reeder are good enough at the running back position. We'll see how that offensive line performs. Their defensive front can be really good if Nick Bosa can get back to being healthy. I really question their secondary, though, but this is a team I don't think they're going to go over the hump this year. I think they're going to struggle throughout the year. They'll win some games, but not enough. Moving on, I think the second place team will be Seattle Seahawks. I think the addition of Jadeveon Clowney helps put that defense over the edge. Even with Jaron Reed, their stud defensive tackle, having to miss the first part of the season due to suspension. Pete Carroll will line him up all over. Russell Wilson wins. At the end of the day, that's what he does. He wins. He finds a way to win. That Seattle front office with John Schneider and Pete Carroll, it's kind of like what I talked about with Chris Ballard and Frank Reich. When you got the right pieces in place, you'll find a way to win no matter who's on your roster. We saw that last year with Seattle. They got Russell Wilson. They got Chris Carson. Tyler Lockett will be good. If you guys been paying attention to any of the podcasts I've been on with the Fantasy Hot Seat, big believer in DK Metcalf. Watch out for him this year. It does look like we'll have to watch the reports this week, and I'll give an update on Friday. But I think he'll end up playing this week. So I think the Seattle Seahawks will be a solid team. I look at them to be no less than 8-8, 9-7, maybe a 10-6 team. I don't think they're ready to win a division. They still need they do need like a guy like DK Metcalf to prove himself as a playmaker on that offense, and they just got to. I just think no matter what, though, Pete Carroll will have that defense ready to roll no matter who's on that side of the ball. Moving on to who I think will win the division again will be the LA Rams. Sean McVay is the GOAT on the offensive side of the ball. They got Cooper Kupp coming back. I think the guy to watch out for is Gerald Everett at the tight end position. I think he can take that next step. I believe he is entering his third year as well. Their biggest Achilles heel, though, on that offense will be that line. They are replacing their center and guard, but from what I understand, they were actually practicing last year with the first team throughout the season. So the Rams were prepping for this changeover. So we'll see if that does work and see if that does help them out. Obviously, the biggest thing with their offense is Todd Gurley. I know people are questioning that, but I think Todd Gurley can still be Todd Gurley on a limited amount of catches. Look what the Saints do with Alvin Kamara. I think they can use Todd Gurley in that same role while using the combination of Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson to help, relieve the stress on his knee or wherever the thing that is bothering him. But I would not be surprised if we're looking back wondering why we questioned Todd Gurley at the beginning of the season. He's Todd Gurley. That defensive side will still be good. Yes, they lost Sue, but they still got Dante Fowler as an edge rusher. They still got, at the end of the day, got the best player in the NFL in Aaron Donald. I think their linebackers are average, but they could still when you got Aaron Donald in front of you, you can play above average. You can play above your means as a linebacker. They still got Talib. They still got Marcus Peters. They added Eric Weddle to the secondary. John Johnson's a solid safety. I like Taylor Rapp, who came out of the drafts, who I think with John Johnson and Eric Weddle, they can actually still use Taylor Rapp in some packages on third down. So this is a team underneath Wade Phillips, underneath Sean McVay. It's at the end of the day, like I've been stressing this whole first episode is, if I believe in your coaching staff, it's going to help you at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, these NFL players are NFL players. They're all good. It's about who can use them in the right way. And that's why I believe the Rams will win the division, even though they are fighting against the Seattle Seahawks, who have just as good as a coaching staff, in my opinion. Now, going into the NFC playoff picture, I think the Rams are so angry about that Super Bowl loss last year. They come back with a vengeance. I have them finishing as the number 1 seed in the NFC. Number 2 seed is the Eagles. I think the Eagles get that easily because, like I mentioned, I think they kind of walked away with the NFC East this year. The 3rd seed, I think, will be the Vikings. The 4th seed, surprisingly, is the Saints. Some people might question why I don't have the Saints higher than that, but like I would mention when I was talking about the NFC South, I think they're going to struggle to win that division this year. I think they're going to have lower record than the Vikings, Eagles, and Rams, and that's why I have them finishing as the fourth seed. And then the Vikings will be my third new playoff team to enter it this year. And then as far as a wild card team, I think the Bears do still squeeze in as a wild card because of their overall talent on that roster. And then my fourth new playoff team, I got the Panthers coming in at the sixth seed. I could see that swap with the Falcons, to be honest, but something tells me the Panthers front, defensive front's going to help them stay in games. And as long as Cam Newton is Cam Newton this year, I think the Panthers can squeeze in. As far as winning the NFC, I think the Eagles will win it. I think they got the deepest roster in the NFC. I think they will win it. So that means I got an Eagles-Patriots rematch with Carson Wentz at the helm this time. And even though I said I won't pick against the Patriots, I think the Eagles win. I think they got the deepest. Like I said, honestly, I might as well go ahead and say I've been hinting at it. They got the deepest roster in the NFL, in my opinion. So I think they got the best chance to win the Super Bowl this year. I think it could be Eagles, Patriots. If I had to take a hot take Super Bowl off the fly off the top of my head, Chargers, Vikings. So will be my hot take Super Bowl. Obviously, that's based on what I said earlier. Derwin James returning healthy, Gordon come back to the team. And if that was the Super Bowl, I could see the Vikings or the Chargers winning it as well this year. Those are my backup teams, I guess, for either conference. And my wonderful producer, who you guys are not seeing right now, inserted this in the script. You might see this throughout this show as we evolve this show. He asked me, what are the three worst teams in the NFL? I kind of hinted at it. Number one, Dolphins. Downright, their roster's terrible right now. Outside guys like Xavier Howard, like I said, I still believe in Josh Rosen. Other than that, I mean, not a big fan of that roster. I could see them being 0-16 and joining the Lions as the defeated teams of NFL history. As far as the other two, I think the Redskins are going to be really bad this year, mainly because of their offensive side of the ball. I like what they got on defense, but I think their overall record's going to be bad because of the offensive side of the ball. And then lastly, I think the Cardinals. I'm not a big fan of their defense. I think the Cardinals got one of the worst rosters in the NFL right now. They got some young playmakers, but it's going to be another year or two before we see any improvement from the Cardinals. And Cliff Kingsbury, bear hope he's got a long leash. Otherwise, he'll be out of the NFL. And people will be questioning why they changed everything to that offense to pick Kyler Murray. So it's going to be depending on him. We'll see. Other than that, guys, this has been my first episode. If you guys have any suggestions, I thank you for tuning in. We're going to be evolving this with more segments. Like I said, the mainly purpose of this is I will be here every Monday and Friday to try to keep you updated on what's going on with all 32 NFL teams. This first episode was more to give you guys more of a feeling on how I feel about the teams. To be completely honest with you, too, give me more practice in front of the camera so you can see this ugly mug. Other than that, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in this first episode. Please check out Blitzalytics.com. We'll be having articles on there every day coming out. We have beat writers, fantasy football. Of course, we'll have our scouting reports, which we do every draft season. And also check out the Blitzalytics podcast network. That's where you'll find my other podcast, the Fantasy Football Hot Seat with Robert Robertson. We got the Blitz Breakdown. And numerous number of pods, Pick Six that you'll see. We have some things in the works as well. And eventually, you'll probably will get the audio version of this in case you guys are traveling and you can't watch it on YouTube. Look for that maybe in the coming weeks when we get the audio version on there. And also, too, with the opening game for the Bears and Packers, we are giving a NFL jersey giveaway. Please go to our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram to follow the details. If you're on our Twitter, all you got to do is retweet, like the post, tag a friend, and tell us what active NFL jersey you'd want to win. And we will be announcing the winner during around halftime of the Bears-Packers game on Thursday. Other than that, thank you for tuning in, and Blitz out.
You have been watching Cody Talks NFL presented by Blitzalytics.com. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon to stay up to date on all things football.